Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. John Searle, in his article Minds, Brains, and Programs, after introducing the Chinese room thought experiment to argue against certain claims made by proponents of what he calls strong AI, and after considering actual objections or arguments that people will make in response, is going to talk about, coming back to the central question. He says, the question I promised I would try to answer. So he says, given in my original example, I understand English and I don't understand Chinese, and granted that the machine doesn't understand either English or Chinese, still there must be something about me that makes it the case that I understand English, and a corresponding something lacking in me that makes it the case I fail to understand Chinese. Why couldn't we give these somethings to, whatever they are, to a machine? And he says, well, there's actually no reason per se why we can't. And his answer to that may, in fact, be kind of surprising to you. He says, there's no reason why we couldn't give a machine to understand English or Chinese. Why? Because in an important sense, our bodies with our brains are precisely such machines. So we ourselves are indeed machines that do understand English or Chinese, or know that we don't understand it, or can form thought experiments of that sort. And then he says, here's what I actually want to say. We can't actually give something like that to a machine where the operation of the machine is defined solely in terms of computational processes that are being carried out over formally defined elements, that is, where the operation of the machine is defined as the instantiation of a computer program. So you could have other kinds of machines like us that can do that. You're not going to do it with a digital computer in the way that we typically think of them. And he goes on and he says, look, I can understand myself as, if I want to, the instantiation of programs. But as far as we know, the reason why I can understand things is because I'm a certain sort of organism with a certain biological structure, and that structure is causally capable of producing perceptions, action, understanding, learning, and other intentional phenomena. Now, we don't actually know how precisely this works. We just know that it does work because we're looking at ourselves and we can tell that we do have intentionality. And Searle is saying this comes out of our human biological structure. So that seems to be kind of promising. And he says, part of the point of my argument is that only something that has these causal powers could have that intentionality. Now, it could be the case that there are other ways of putting together a being that has that, structure and can produce those causal, results. Martians, for example, could have intentionality, but maybe their brains are made of different stuff. Okay, that seems to be promising. You're not going to get that out of a digital computer, at least in the way that we typically understand them. Why? He says no purely formal model will ever be sufficient by itself for intentionality. Why? Because the formal properties are not by themselves constitutive of intentionality, and they have by themselves no causal power except the power when instantiated to produce the next stage of the formalism. They can't produce perception. They can't produce understanding. They can't produce action. All they can do is tell the machine what to output next. So that's going to be a really big problem. And here, interestingly, Searle, who typically likes to talk about the literal and to avoid metaphor as much as possible, because it's a little bit loosey-goosey, is going to come up with a really interesting analogy. He says that what matters about brain operations is not the formal shadow cast by the sequence of synapses, but the actual properties of the synapses. And then he's going to use this word shadow again. He says, all of the arguments for the strong version of artificial intelligence that I've seen, so he's not saying every single argument, but all the ones that I've seen, insist on drawing an outline around the shadows cast by cognition and then claiming that the shadows are the real thing. Now, that could be unpacked. They're getting at something that is indeed coming from cognition, sort of parasitic on our human cognition, right? The guy inside of the Chinese room, or if you want to say the digital computer that we actually created. It's an artifact of our own minds. And we're pretending to ourselves that the shadows of human cognition are actually the real thing. And you can say a very similar thing with a type of artificial intelligence that has become very common in our own time that was not at the time that Searle is writing this, large language models, drawing upon tons and tons of human-generated data, putting it together in certain ways, but ultimately just doing predictive text. Even with the training that these models get, training from human beings, right? It's just the shadow, not the reality. So that's a very interesting idea there. He's going to come back to the key question, and he says, the key question is, could a machine think? And the trivial answer to that is, well, of course. Because as we saw before, we are such machines. And then the interlocutor could say, that's not what I'm talking about, buddy. Could an artifact, a human-made machine, think? And Searle says, interestingly, well, yes, of course. If you, as a human being, could actually make a machine that was like a human brain, sufficiently so, presumably it would have the same causal properties as the human brain, and you would get cognition out of it. You would get intentionality. Of course, that's far beyond us at this point in time. That's sort of science fiction. Maybe you could think of the brains inside of the replicants in Blade Runner or Philip K. Dick's The Android's Dream of Electric Sheep as being like that, but that's science fiction. That's not reality. So then the question is, well, could a digital computer think? And the question is, could a digital computer think, understand, and so on in virtue of being a computer with the right sort of program? Could instantiating a program with the right program by itself be a sufficient condition of understanding? And Searle says, well, this is the right question to ask, and the answer to it is no. That's what the whole Chinese room experiment was intended to show you. Because you can set up sort of structural analogy between what's going on in the Chinese room and what is going on in the digital computer. And somebody could say, well, why not? I don't get it. And here's Searle's answer. The formal symbol manipulations by themselves don't have any intentionality. You could say the person inside has intentionality, but the way in which they're exercising it doesn't produce any intentionality. And if you're working just with a computer, it's hardware and then, programs, you're not getting any intentionality that you're not already putting into it. So there's no intentionality there. And he goes further and notes something really important. Technically speaking, it's not even manipulating symbols. We talk about formal symbol manipulations. We talk about that from our perspective. They're not even symbols. Why not? Because they don't symbolize anything to the computer program. They are just inputs, outputs, programs, whatever you want to call it along the way. So this isn't even symbol manipulation because the symbols don't symbolize anything. He says in the linguistic jargon they have only a syntax but no semantics. So no intentionality there on the part of the computer program, however sophisticated it happens to be. Now he's going to go on and say, this is really the crux of the issue. The feature of AI that seems so appealing, the distinction between the program and realization, proves fatal to the claim that simulation could be duplication. The distinction between the program and its realization in the hardware seems to be parallel to the distinction between the level of mental operations and the level of brain operations. But this analogy actually, or as he's going to call it, an equation, mind is to brain as program is to hardware, breaks down for a couple different reasons. And he says that there's three, but perhaps we could come up with more. So the first one, the distinction between program and realization has the consequence the same program could have all sorts of crazy realizations that had no form of intentionality. So, he says in the Chinese story, understanding program can be programmed into a sequence of water pipes, a set of wind machines, a monolingual English speaker, none of which acquires an understanding of Chinese. Stones, toilet paper, wind, water pipes are the wrong kind of stuff to have intentionality, right? Second, the program is purely formal, but intentional states are not in that way formal. Now, what does he mean? You got to kind of unpack this. They're not purely formal. He says they're defined in terms of their content, not their form. The belief that it's raining is not defined as a certain formal shape, but a certain mental content with conditions of satisfaction, a direction of fit, and the like, right? And then third, as I mentioned before, mental states and events are literally a product of the operation of the brain, but the program is not in that way a product of the computer. Now that one you could look at and say, well, yeah, of course it's not a product of the computer because a programmer, human being, programs the program into the computer. So, that one doesn't seem to be that great of a rebuttal. But Searle thinks that this is enough for us to be able to say, so long as you've got the kind of computer that you're talking about with the strong AI models of his time, and presumably some of our own time as well, you're just not going to be able to get intentional states coming out of it. And among those intentional states is understanding. So you can get it out of machines, but you can't get it out of digital computers.